So the first article that I have for you today, and we're going to talk about this as a topic, not so much as the article individually itself, is from the New York Times. Excuse me. The title is What We Know About Breonna Taylor's Case and Death. Now, the reason I felt it important to bring this one up today, because so many different people are talking about it all over the place, is not to talk about this article in particular, like I just said, but to talk about the problem with the argument that's going on both sides of this equation. So Breonna Taylor, I'm sure everybody knows, was unlawfully killed while police executed a no-knock warrant on her apartment that her boyfriend, who had a warrant out or was a suspected felon, was staying at. So it was her apartment. There was a no-knock warrant. Her boyfriend and her were allegedly in the hallway of that apartment. Her boyfriend fired at the cops. The cops in return fired at both of them and struck and killed Breonna, who was not accused or attempting any crime. Now, the right side has said for the most... Oh, actually, before I get into that, just so you know, a no-knock warrant is a warrant that a judge will issue saying that police do not have to identify themselves when they are entering into somebody's home. And they typically will enter by just kicking the door in and storming the place. But the point there is they don't state that they're the police at any given point during that altercation. They will storm in the door and they have the right to use lethal force without identifying themselves when a judge has granted them a no-knock warrant. The original idea for these warrants was in situations like maybe in a trap house or a crack house or I don't know, some facility owned by like a cartel or something. It would be it would not be good for the police to identify themselves because the suspects would be able to prepare themselves, arm, and then potentially harm the police faster than the police could subdue the target. So there's a huge problem with this. There's a huge problem. And it's one that this argument should be primarily about, or this case should be primarily about, and it's not. And this is what's happening. So the right is framing this as, yeah, Breonna Taylor should not have been killed, but she did let her boyfriend, who she knew was not a great guy, who was suspected of committing crime, stay at her house. And she had been around him for a while. And you know, who you associate with, I mean, it can just ruin your life. That's what's happening on the right. And what's happening on the left is all cops are bad, and actually the police shouldn't have shot anybody in there. The police should have just taken the bullets that her boyfriend was shooting at her, and blah, 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 blah. So this is the bottom line for anybody who loves America, okay? Who loves this country. Even if you don't love the country, if you believe in our general beliefs as written. An American lost her life because police were granted a no-knock warrant on not a suspect's home, on somebody adjacent to a suspect's home. That is the salient point. Okay, I'm going to say it again because I'm sure that there aren't very many right-wingers listening to this show anymore, but still, I'm going to say it again. An American lost her rights because police did not handle, and the judicial system did not handle the situation well, period. That is what happened. It doesn't matter that Breonna Taylor was associating with not a great guy. It's not Breonna Taylor's fault, or rather, it is not her place to die by the authorities because her boyfriend, even if he is a murderer, if he is a serial rapist murderer, it is not her job to die for his crimes. It doesn't matter how that happens. The end result is the same. She died and she lost her rights because of that situation when she should not have been. It did not serve justice for anybody for her to die. Not that it's the police's job to be serving justice in the first place. Okay? This is a very, very simple point that the people on the right should be freaking out about, because police overreaches means Americans lose their rights. Okay? That is where we are on this situation. And instead, this is being framed as, well, are all cops bad or are all cops good? Well, the answer is neither, because this isn't kindergarten and issues are more complicated than that. Okay? This bothers me because if you want, there is no way that you can make an argument that no-knock warrants serve the best intent when it comes to respecting the Fourth Amendment of the Bill of Rights, which is the right to a citizen not being put through an unlawful search and seizure. Basically meaning that a judge would have to sign off on any police's, if a police officer or if any law enforcement person wants to search your house, a judge has to authorize it. Okay, that's what it means in black and white. But the problem is, anybody can lawyer around an amendment and create a carve out to where it can justify any action that they want. And that's exactly what we have here. Does a no-knock warrant served on not a target's home, on somebody adjacent to a target's home, does that best serve the intent of the Fourth Amendment of the Bill of Rights? The answer to that is no. If you have a brain, the answer to that is no. So should somebody have been charged in this? I think so. Even though officers were returning fire and she was caught in the crossfire, somebody should have been charged with something other than the willful misconduct or something that they threw at an officer. It was nonsense. I'm not saying that they should have had a first-degree murder charge, because I don't think that they intended to shoot and kill her when they walked in that apartment. Obviously, none of those officers wanted to be on trial at all. But what's more important than any individual being charged here is the system changing around no-knock warrants. And there are a few people in the system and in politics that have been raising this issue for a long time, because it's un-American. Plain and simple, it is un-American. And the reason that we have to have a show like this called The Rogue Patriot is because there's a bunch of false patriots, hashtag fake patriot, that are out there waving around their American flag and saying that if you want to love your country, if you want to be a patriot, if you are patriotic, then you will, by all means, support the police and the president. And that is bullshit in this case.